Hi, we're going to be looking at doing our Paul Klee treehouse prints this week. I have two things that I'm going to be working with, three actually if you count our Sharpies. I have a sheet of paper that I'm going to prep my idea on, and then I have the actual foam sheet that I'm going to use later for printing on. We had talked about some of our geometric shapes and some of our organic shapes, and how can we combine those into making our tree houses and our treehouse community for a resemblance to Paul Klee's trees. And so I'm going to start with, on my idea, the basic part of the building, which is a rectangle, but maybe for the front door I want something that looks a little more interesting. Looks a bit more like a castle gate. So I'm going to put a doorknob on it though. And then for my particular house, I like the idea of having some of those little castle turrets that are on there to decorate it. And maybe I even have a big, giant one off the side here. And I'm using different shapes. This one's kind of a cone with on top of a cylinder. And then I might use lots of rectangles that are really tall for the windows, but on these windows over here, maybe I use those arched windows again. I could also do a couple of regular windows that stick off the edge, kind of like that. And then, ooh, I think I'm going to do a balcony up here, someplace where they can walk out and see who's coming to their house. And then it could open up with a big fancy door that has some side windows. Kind of like that. And I want to get some textures in here. So I'm going to add some shingles to this roof over here. They're sort of like fish scales if you think about them this way, the loopy ones, or dragon scales or snake scales. And then this one's built out of bricks. So I'm going to put a few bricks. I'm not going to cover the whole thing with bricks. If I did that, I would lose all of my pretty little details. So I'm just going to add a few bricks together to indicate that my whole place is made out of bricks. Sort of like this. And what else? Oh, I might want a little flagpole. Could do a flag on there. I could do a flag over here, because when we print these, all of them will show up. So there I filled up most of my picture. I'm not going to worry about a background, because when we print these, we're going to be printing them on something else that will already have a background on it. After I finish with my design and I get it the way I like it, then I'm going to take my foam piece, put it under my design like this so they line up in the corners. And I want to make sure that they stay lined up. If I'm not sure if I can hold it with my hands the whole time, another trick that I could do is to get a little piece of tape, and then I can line up the edge a little bit and then tape it down so it doesn't move. Okay. You can ask your teacher to help you with that part if it's something you think that will help you out. Now I want to trace all of my lines. Yours will be in pencil. It'll be much easier to see. Remember, I always draw in Sharpie so that you can see what's on here for the camera. So yours will be in pencil, and when you trace it, I like to trace it gently but firmly with a colored pencil so that I can see where I have already been. I'm going to go right on top of all my lines, and you'll feel when you do this that the paper starts to rip a little bit or bend. That's because you're sort of carving this into your foam plate that's underneath. I'm going to go around all those edges very carefully, and I can see again where I've been because it's purple. You can use any color pencil you want. Yellow is usually a trickier to see. I don't know that I'd recommend using yellow, but you can use red, orange, green, blue, purple, brown. Again, black might be kind of difficult to see if your pencil was really dark. And I'm not being too hard on this. I don't want to rip all my paper. I just want those spots to bend a little bit into the foam underneath. And I'll show you in just a minute what it looks like, because we're going to go over it a couple of times in order to make sure that it's really going to print the way we want to when we use the printing ink. And you notice I'm being careful to hold that paper on there even though there's tape. I use my hands really close, my fingers really close to where I'm doing the pencil to extra make sure that the paper doesn't slip up or make a mess. I think I'm almost done. Did I miss anything? Oh, up here, right? There's no purple that's up here on the top of the tower yet. And this works really well if you have an almost sharp colored pencil. You don't want it to be super pointy because then it'll rip up the paper. I can lift it up and I can start checking. You can see it left indentations underneath on the next page. And I copied everything, so I'm going to move this out of my way now, over here. And now I'm very gently going to push even a little harder on here. You guys can see the pencil comes off a little bit, and that's okay. But you can see how those little dents are getting even deeper as I push a little harder on it this time. And that's what we want to see. So when we do our inking, the ink will go on everything except down inside these little dents, and then it will leave a little miniature picture after we turn it over and push it onto the paper with our brayers. They kind of look like rolling pins or rolling bars when we use the brayers. Going to get way down in here. Again, I'm pushing firmly, but not super hard because I don't want to rip the foam. I just want to push on the lines that I already have in here. Now some people say, well, Mrs. C, how come we don't just draw directly on the foam? Well, what if you made a mistake and there was something you didn't like? Can I make the foam pop back up again? No, I can't. Once I push down on the foam, that line is there for sure. So this way, if we trace something we already did on another piece of paper, we know it's going to come out just the way that we wanted it to. And then I can go back for this part and push a little harder to make sure all of these other pieces show up. I am almost done. You guys see anything that I missed? Yep, I think the flag back on the top here, right? There we go. Now, oh, a few more bricks. Now I think I've got it all. Looks pretty good. I can feel it with my fingers. I can feel all those textures. So it's a real texture versus a perceived texture. This would be perceived where I can see it, but I can't feel anything. But on this one, I can feel all of those real textures. So now let's take a look at what we're going to do for printing. Okay, so now we're going to look at using our plate to actually print this onto our paper. You get to pick a color of ink that you like. And then we're going to have our little inking palette knife here and our brayer that we talked about that rolls. And you'll need a plate to put your ink on. So your teacher can help you out with this part if you aren't sure how much you need. It's not very much. You're just going to use your palette knife on the backside, kind of like if you were making a peanut butter sandwich. And you're going to spread it just a little sideways, about as wide as your brayer, because your brayer is going to run through it. You can scrape off any extra back into your ink on this part. Make sure you get the lid back on. Don't want them to dry out. Put it off to the side. And then I'm going to roll and pick up. Roll and pick up. Roll and pick up. And I do this. You can see it sticks. It lifts it up to spread out the ink. And it's not making my sticky noise yet. I want it to kind of make a Velcro noise. It's starting to make a Velcro noise, but not quite. There it goes, you hear it? We want it to really make that Velcro noise when we're inking our plates like that. Then, when you ink your plate, you want to make sure you have a scrap paper underneath because this is going to kind of get all over. And it might get on your fingers a little, that's all right. We'll wash them off in the sink. And you want to push gently and roll it back and forth a couple times this direction. Then you want to turn your plate or your brayer and you want to roll it back and forth the other direction a little bit. I don't want it down in all those lines. Remember how we said those lines were going to stay? We want the ink just on the surface of your plate. So I can move this out of the way. I can get the piece I want to put it on. And then, very carefully, I'm just going to drop it in the middle. Okay, I don't want to move it or smudge it sideways or up and down, right? And I'm going to very carefully but firmly, using this palm part of my hand, right? Push down gently all the way down. And I know it's on there because it's stuck. If you look at it sideways, it's stuck on all the sides. And you want to take this corner and this corner and you want to peel it off. Look at that. And it's a mirror image of itself. So that's pretty cool, isn't it? Let's see. You want to see that again? Let's try that one more time so you can see how it works. I still have plenty of ink on here, so I have to roll it. Remember, picking up, you're kind of making this motion when you're rolling it. You're coming up off of it. So load some ink back on here. Get my scrap paper. Put my plate on it. Roll it out, because maybe the first time you missed some areas when you rolled it and you saw that when you printed. You're going to do a second one. I'm going to move this stuff off to the side. My other piece of paper, or maybe you pick a different color paper for the second one to put it on. Put it down flat and make sure my sleeves aren't in the way. I don't want to get this on my sleeves. I'm going to push straight up and down, right? We don't want to push sideways or move that at all. Peel it off, and there's my second print. I'm going to put these on the drying rack, and this part that you printed with you can throw away because this ink never really dries on these plates. It'll stay sticky and it'll keep coming off on your hands. So these part we can just recycle over in our foam trash can area. Great job!